Hey guys, welcome to the Hype Attack Podcast, where we weigh in on the latest in nerd and pop culture hype.
We're the fandom. We are the excited conversations we have with our friends about the nerdy things we all love and geek about. We are the Hype Attack.
I am the hype!
What's up, everybody? We have all sorts of announcements this week. Star Wars Celebration, of course, just happened, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. But beyond all of those announcements and trailers, Disney showed us the Indiana Jones trailer. They showed us the Marvels trailer, the Peter Pan trailer. All look really fun, really good. Peacock released a trailer for The Continental, which is set in the John Wick universe.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that. And then HBO today dropped news of Tiny Toons coming back, a Game of Thrones prequel, like 100 years set before the Game of Thrones series, and The Penguin, which I'm very excited for because I think he stole the show in The Batman. But Star Wars, let's get in talking about that.
Get to the meat of it.
Yeah, time to talk about Star Wars.
Dun, 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 dun.
You're fucking nerds.
So the Ahsoka trailer, what did you guys think?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. That looks really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so did anyone go deeper and find the extended trailer?
I did not.
That had all
No,
the
I
extra
didn't get the
footage?
chance to do that. And I want to preface this whole conversation with something specific because, as mentioned in the first episode of our podcast, that I don't know as much as you guys do, and other than me commenting on these trailers and announcements being like, oh, the colors are pretty and stuff, you guys are going to be the heavy hitters with all the pertinent information. I'm just going to be throwing some questions at you and just looking at you all starry-eyed. So take it away.
Well, you'll learn, young Padawan.
Yeah, he's just a young Padawan.
Do I get that cool little braid?
Grow some hair.
Savage.
I did not look into the extended trailer stuff, but I've heard it showed some good stuff. Yeah.
When
Did you dive into the extended trailer?
I did, and I wish that it was still up and I could refresh myself. But as soon as these things go up, Disney copyright strikes them to oblivion.
Oh, crap.
I do remember some of the extra stuff. Sabine actually wielding Ezra's lightsaber. The big thing was they actually showed Thrawn like his full face, like from the front.
Ooh.
Because in the trailer you get that over
Yeah,
the
we got
shoulder
the back shot. Yeah.
but like they actually like his full visage is on display.
I would have loved to have been in that crowd.
Hot.
People would have lost their minds. That's sorry to interrupt.
No.
That's the thing about going to any of these conventions. If anyone is listening and hesitant to go to
them.
Star Wars Celebration, Comic-Con, any of them, wait in that line, get in there, because the energy you feel when you're surrounded by 1,000 people that are just as passionate as you, it's insane. It brings tears to the eyes.
Before we move on from that, though, a quick question. Star Wars Celebration released their Celebration exclusive footage where San Diego Comic-Con has moved on from that, where they release both things simultaneously to the public and to the convention goers. What do you think is the better route?
If I get to go to the convention, I love that it's exclusive. If I'm not there, please release it.
Yeah.
I know that's the cop-out answer, but
I mean, I love that it is exclusive to the fans because of that Comic-Con experience of like the Hall H and waiting in line, and you're like the first ones to see it. Like you sacrifice all that 24 hours waiting in line.
You guys have done it.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
oh
we
yeah.
have.
And I'll do it again. I die for that shit. But it's just one of those things like where you're in that room and that when that
Electricity's in the air.
yeah, just when that hint of what that trailer is, that energy, that surge that you get,
man.
there's nothing like it. Like it's the sensation of like, I'm gonna age myself here, but like when we used to go to the midnight showings for all these like movies like The Matrix back in the day, like just hanging around in line with those people and just when the trailer starts or the movie starts, people just clapping and just everything, like the roar of the crowd, like it's like that gladiator arena like experience. And I feel like it should always be if it's an exclusive convention, to the fans first, and then, like a minute or so later, you'll leak it to the regulars who couldn't go watch, but, or go to the convention. But I always feel like it's an honor for the fans to just get that first taste before it, like, escapes into the atmosphere.
It's also incentive to go to those conventions, go to those events.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've personally only been at Comic-Con twice, and I went to last year's Star Wars Celebration. I goddamn loved every minute of it. To be under one roof where everyone either has similar or just that have the same energy, even if it's for different fandoms. It's just like, yeah, we all know what we're here for, and it's such a good environment.
Oh yeah, like you bump into people and you just start talking. You have all these conversations, and you like, man, like these fans are loving it just like me.
And the cosplay, I know you guys have done it a handful of times. The cosplay is just super fucking cool. But yeah, I think that people at the convention should have first go at the sneak peeks and those trailers.
Always, even if I'm not there, but always.
Yeah.
But if I'm not there,
it's earned, fans. It's earned.
But the trailer for Ahsoka, even without the extended footage, was still very exciting. As someone, I watched the Rebels cartoon, and seeing a lot of those characters, all of the characters, in live action for the first time, second time for some. I think Chopper was in Rogue One, but seeing all that was super cool, and like I love Sabine, so I'm very excited to see her live action. I wish I did see the extended trailer with her with Ezra's lightsaber, but some of the details from that, like the orangish or orange lightsabers, I think that's super kind of interesting. That's one of those details that I think Star Wars nerds are going to like really get into. But I am curious to see why they're not a solid red lightsaber.
And it was two characters that were I immediately mistook them as Sith, right? It was a female and male character, and they looked dressed in black, kind of telltale sign of a bad guy, black hat characters. And I thought that they were wielding red lightsabers, and then at second glance, and then you confirmed it later, isn't it kind of orange?
Yeah.
I have no idea what the hell that means.
There's a soundbite of someone asking Dave Filoni about this, and he said he took the inspiration from like the original Star Wars, where Darth Vader sometimes, just because the way the effects look, his lightsaber looked a little orange, and he's like, that's kind of weird and cool, and he put that in there as maybe they're not exactly what you think they are at first glance, because it's their lightsabers aren't solid red. They're not. Maybe they're not solid bad guys. And then in the trailer, you see both of them fighting what looks like Empire and New Republic soldiers. So you don't know where the hell they're coming from, whose side they're on.
They're in the gray zone.
Though in the extended trailer, the younger one is fighting Sabine, and they're going head to head with lightsabers. So once again, your guess is as good as mine at this point.
But it makes sense. So the Ahsoka's series is taking place in the New Republic era, which they released a timeline at the Star Wars Celebration, which we'll get into. But New Republic era is the Mandalorian era, the Book of Boba Fett. So this is a time period that the Empire has fallen. The Jedi Order is still relatively new. Luke's rebuilding the temple that we saw in The Mandalorian. Or was that the Book of Boba Fett? Book of Boba Fett?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, it was the Book of Boba Fett.
Where half of it wasn't actually about Boba Fett.
Where everybody said that the Boba Fett series got good when Mando came in. I will never forget that moment where Mando walks in and he's on the screen and you just hear the music.
Oh yeah,
and you're like, oh,
that was the beginning of an episode. It was like mid season, beginning of the episode, and all of a sudden you're not on Tatooine, and the music hits. So good. So it's kind of an interesting time period because maybe these are force sensitive lightsaber users. Maybe they're not full Sith because the rule of two and Palpatine is gone at that point and Vader's gone.
Is Palpatine really ever gone?
No, apparently not. Someone's cloning and clones are banging and everything.
What does
making
Poe
kids.
say that one time? He goes, "Somehow Palpatine is back." Cool. Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, he came back in Fortnite.
Oh,
Spoiler
God,
alert.
don't get me started. on that shit.
Sorry, yeah. So maybe these are, maybe dark side ish, but not Sith because there's no one to teach him about the Sith. So I mean, we'll see where it goes. That's the fun. Sorry, that's the fun of exploring these kind of new eras on the timeline. The New Republic, the High Republic, the High Republic, and the Dawn of the Jedi are all kind of new areas to explore, and we'll get into all that.
Which I'm also excited to see where things go from here, like as in with all the new era stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, the part of the announcements or anything else about Ahsoka?
Well, I would just like to add what you said. Like, how does everybody feel right now about like the live adaptation of all these characters that are coming in now?
I wanted to touch on that. So I know a handful of the voice actors are reprising the role as a live action, which I think is the fucking coolest thing because you have Bo-Katan, who was voiced by Katie Sackhoff, and she gets to play her in the live action, and it's something that she's able to carry that attitude that she had in the animated series and gets to carry, and because she's also a live actor, she was in Battlestar Galactica,
Starbuck.
and so she's able to to do that. She has the acting chops to do that, and I don't know the actor's last name Mickelson, right? Who's going to be who voiced Thrawn, and he's going to be playing him in Ahsoka.
Lars Mikkelsen.
Lars Mikkelsen.
Lars,
Oh,
yeah.
so close. I love that. I love people that voiced them and then get to actually play them live action. And I don't know much about who voiced Sabine or any of the other characters, but it isn't who's playing them in live action, right?
Right.
I don't think so.
But that being said, I love Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and I fucking love Mary Elizabeth
Say it,
Winstead.
say
I
it.
love her.
Oh, I have
Oh
such
my
crush on Mary
God,
Elizabeth Winstead.
those big beautiful eyes, Ramona. I mean, come on. No, they have not ever fallen short as of yet of casting amazing actors to play these characters that everybody fucking loves because, like I said before, I'm not well versed in the Star Wars world like you guys are. I've watched the movies, the trilogies. I've seen some of the shows. I'm trying to watch some Bad Batch. I've definitely been watching The Mandalorian, but the animated series like Rebels and
The Clone Wars.
I haven't watched any of those. But
Hold on.
Get him,
already,
Get him.
It's
already,
coming.
Shame.
yep, it hurts every time, all the time.
That's a little tear coming out here.
Him
but I
about-
see
I
it.
know the cartoons, but watch. Just watch it.
No. I only have so much time in the day, and so there's so many things to
Oh,
consume. I mean,
absolutely.
we have a list of things that are all shows and movies. A person only has a finite amount of time in the day. But that being said,
Use the Force.
I was peripherally aware of the character Ahsoka, and when she popped up, played by Rosario Dawson, in the second season of The Mandalorian, I knew enough to be bonkers excited about it. One, because I love the actress, and two, because it's just I've learned that it's such an important character, and that she gets her own show is the fucking coolest thing.
Yeah, and
Is
they did a really.
no,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
Is the show for? I mean the show theme for Ahsoka, I heard anyways, but is she supposed to be like a Ronin Jedi, like wandering around and
Yeah, because she left the Jedi Order during the Clone Wars cartoons, and then I don't think she ever returned. And one of my favorite lines from the Rebels cartoon was when she was ready to face Vader, and Vader's like, "Oh, revenge isn't the way of the Jedi," and she like ignites her lightsaber. It's like, "I'm no Jedi."
Yeah, I've heard people comment that
love
same
it.
thing, that she ain't no Jedi.
So yeah, I think Rebels ended with, I think Sabine saying like she's gonna like look for Ezra, and I think Ahsoka is obviously still after Thrawn. So, and we got a taste of that in Mandalorian. Like she's off doing her thing.
Yeah,
And that's what I was gonna say was, even if you weren't aware of who she was, Mandalorian did a great job of introducing like she's a badass. You know,
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
good. But
Which, by the way, that episode, that episode had a very, as you guys said it earlier, like a samurai feel. The entirety of that episode, her introduction to her Ahsoka and the Mandalorian, I mean, Star Wars itself was sort of like like samurai based space opera. Anyways,
yeah,
So
the first movie was certainly the Odyssey / Wizard of Oz / Star Wars. They're all like the same story. It's the quintessential like story, but I think there was samurai influence beyond that.
One more thing I want to bring up before we move on from Ahsoka. How versed are you guys with the character of Thrawn specifically?
Just from Rebels, but I know the books
only from
went
the
into a lot.
Rebels.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's from the first continuation of the books past the original trilogy. He was the main villain in the first 3 books, written by Timothy Zahn. He is a character that's close to my heart because that's where I started my adventure with the extended Star Wars universe was with those books, and then I jumped into everything else. I just had the 3 movies that I watched over and over and over and over and over again until I ran out the VHS tape. But
don't date yourself.
anyway, the in the trailer, Ahsoka mentions she's been hearing whispers of Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire, which was the title of the first novel that he was in. So it's a direct callback to that. So very exciting. So very fucking exciting.
I bet.
Because Thrawn's character comes from almost outside of the Star Wars galaxy. Like there's, you have the core planets, you have the mid rim, the outer rim, and then you have the unknown regions. That's where Thrawn hails from, and they pull him from that and throw him into the mix in Star Wars. And then when Rebels wraps up and Ezra takes him wherever he takes him, like they go back to that. So there's like a wealth of more story that they could be pulling in from there. That's possibly where these 2 new Force users are coming from. Stuff like that. But just that callback in the trailer, like it just melted into a pool. And when she said that, like I was ready for it.
You and I were talking the other day about the books, and you told me like what those stories were, and I thought it was interesting because you said Thrawn. I think in the original books before they became legacy, but I think you said they even in the newer books, the new canon stuff, that Thrawn found like a threat outside, and him coming back. We were discussing the idea that the trailer certainly set it up like Thrawn's going to be the villain of this, but there is a possibility that he might
gonna do it.
There's a possibility that he could be coming back to fight alongside these heroes against a larger threat.
Which sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, which would be interesting. So yeah, you can add to that.
Because what I found interesting, and I don't know if this is going to connect or not, but in one of the recent episodes of The Mandalorian, they show that the X-Wing pilot going back to Coruscant to try to get the New Republic involved in the skirmishes that are going on in the Outer Rim. And they're like, well, we kind of have our hands busy in the core. Like, Outer Rim is on its own. Like,
Yeah.
we can't get into everything. Like, we're stretched thin, blah, blah, blah. Like, this could be, as it's set up now, like, they could totally bring in this, like, an outside threat that comes, first into the Outer Rim. And, that war takes place there, far from the center of the universe, far from the New Republic. And they can tell, like, a self-contained story in the Star Wars universe and still make reference to, like, we're not touching the sequels, but here's a new story in the universe, and that's just as epic as the main story.
That's right, because the majority of and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the majority of the Star Wars movies and shows have a bit of a through line of politics. There's always a politics of the Republic or the Empire. And which is, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but which is what I love about Andor and The Mandalorian is they expand and explore the It isn't just that person's in trouble. Let's go save them. Let's convince someone so and so to go help out. No, it's like, no, we got some bureaucratic red tape to work through.
Yeah, I really enjoy that they're showing those aspects of the New Republic. I know people have complained that some of these episodes of Mandalorian have gone back to that full Coruscant episode where they spent the whole time basically kind of dealing with that. But it was,
I found it interesting. As much as I like, all the explosions and action, I was like, I'm pretty excited about the politics of, because I've one of the things as I've watched the movies and the shows is again, you see all the actiony stuff and you kind of follow somewhat of the storyline, but the thing that they've always been really good about is keeping like a consistent storyline that maybe some people don't really focus too much on. Maybe you catch it in like the beginning, crawl. They kind of explain all that. It's like, let's get all the political stuff out of the way, but to expand it and make it such an interesting, almost House of Cards-esque, without Kevin Spacey, way is fascinating. They're doing a good job about it.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to point out was if you watched Andor, they showed a lot of the bureaucracy of the Empire.
Yeah.
And in that episode of Mandalorian, they showed a lot of that same bureaucracy is happening in the New Republic. And I just, it's kind of a cool thing to see. And I think there was even one of those like upper class people even commenting like, or making a comment and someone's like, oh no, dear, that's not the Empire anymore. It's like, oh, whatever. It's all the same. And I love like that aspect of it again. Like there's this underlying social political commentary throughout it all. But so the Thrawn story will be interesting because as of now, a lot of this New Republic story that we're getting, it's all in the Outer Rim, is kind of meandering. I mean, the whole Mandalorian thing is meandering. Boba Fett's doing his little thing on Tatooine. So it would be cool if we get that big war that you're talking about, because then it would kind of make the New Republic stand out as like a key important part, not just some random thing that happened until Palpatine came back with the New Order and blew up the Senate.
Somehow Palpatine came back.
Yeah.
So do we know is Vader supposed to possibly be in the series? Did anybody
Christensen
he has a credit in the, if you go to, I don't know if it's an IMDb page or the Wikipedia page, but he has a credit.
He's in there.
That he's in there. And I've watched a couple videos and I've heard rumors about how they're going to use the character. I don't know if
Flashback
you guys want to hear it or not, but it's it's kind of far out there.
Give it to me, baby.
But interesting how it kind of deals with Ahsoka's destiny, her overall destiny. Like if she says she's not a Jedi and she's trying to follow her own path, but it kind of somehow some kind of plot device is supposed to like put her back in these situations where like Anakin versus Obi-Wan on Mustafar would have been, if she stayed in the Order, would have been Anakin versus Ahsoka instead.
Oh,
and they go back to that, they show that duel. So like they kind of like replay her life and like, no matter what choice you made, destiny would have led you to this spot.
That's cool.
But that's just, that as cool as I think that is, and I would love to see it, like grain of salt. Mm-hmm. Don't get too excited.
I'm curious if the writers,
because it could just be a voiceover where
God damn, I feel my nipples. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Oh God,
I'm curious.
And that's his sole credit in that.
Just like a quick Force Ghost, like shaking his head or something.
That was Ewan McGregor's sole credit in episode 9 was
oh yeah,
Ray.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that was it. I was like, oh, they got Ewan McGregor to reprise his role. And no, it's just Ray.
It was cool though that they took the original actor for Obi-Wan. They were able to take a line from
Alec Guinness.
Yeah,
Alec or Alex?
Alec.
They were able to take a line that he said and cut.
Oh, that's
Ray out.
right.
So they were able to get him to say Ray, but it was through
when she was like hearing her
magic.
Yeah.
So I mean, this whole Ahsoka story, this whole Thrawn thing is probably going to take place in one of the 3 new movies they announced at Star Wars Celebration, which is the movie taking place during the New Republic, the Mandalorian era.
Dave Filoni and help me out. What's his
Favreau.
name?
John
Favreau. They've been guiding,
the guy from Swingers.
Yeah,
how's he doing?
They've been guiding this process, this storyline, and Dave Filoni actually gets to direct the movie. So
isn't this his first?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
He went from animation to the Mando live action stuff, and now he's going to get a movie.
And I'm with
which is cool as hell. You listen to any of his interviews, he is passionate.
And that's the best person to direct or help create all of these things.
Like, I remember like a little snippet of a story of those guys talking, like they're talking to each other, and they're like, "Can you believe we're getting paid to make these movies that we literally talk about to each other since we met, and that's all we used to do, is talk about Star Wars, and here we are talking about Star Wars, but now we actually get to make these movies." Like,
because people like that get to make the non-conventional storylines happen, whether it be in a show or in a movie. It's one of those things, and I don't want to go too psychoanalytical about it, but Doug had mentioned in our last episode about like some movies being formulaic, or some shows being formulaic. You get the thing. We talk about Blue Beetle, right? Mm-hmm. There's a thing, you got to get the thing, you got to do the thing. The end, we learn a sort of lesson.
Oh, and people scream a lot.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
No, don't move.
And a lot of, but that's my train of thought.
Sorry.
the formulaic.
Oh yeah, but people like this are able to, in essence, tell the audience, "I'll tell you what you want. You're not going to know it until we give it to you." I couldn't make that sound less weird. But that happens a lot where people go, well, like with the original and the new trilogy of Star Wars, where people were like, "Well, that was too much like the old one. No, this one's too different." You're like, "Well, just shut up and just, let's let the creators create and present to you this beautiful storyline that they're creative." I'm not a creative, that the creative mind can pump out, and you'll watch it and get blown the hell away, and you'll shut up and freaking like it.
Yeah, one of my big things for any of these kind of movies is when the creators, the makers of them, trust the audience. Mm-hmm. And someone like Filoni, I feel he's gonna trust us. And something with shows like Mandalorian and Ahsoka, which everybody watches. I really hope they go into this movie just trusting us to know Star Wars, to accept it, and then they could tell us their story without a lot of like hand holding.
There is a fine line though between trusting the audience and being like, "Oh, you didn't watch or read these things?"
Yes,
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, you have to be aware of like a good portion of your audience is just going to be there because they want to be there that Friday night or whatever at the theater, but still, like when it comes to like these kind of IPs or things, just trust goes a long way.
Oh yeah, I feel like that, like they know the fans, and because they're one themselves, and I feel like they're gonna give us, what we want / what they want. Because with what they're doing right now with the Mandalorian, like it's for this character to just come in and everybody has so much love for the actor and the character. Like
Of Grogu? Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh, that guy when he was on that other thing.
But I wholeheartedly like trust them for what they're gonna do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Before we get off on too much of a tangent,
which we won't.
Anyway, the recent quote attributed to one of the creators, I don't know if it was John or Dave, about the Mandalorian, or maybe it was one of the episode directors, but the Mandalorian doesn't necessarily apply to Din anymore.
Oh yeah.
How it's
I've been
about
hearing
all
about
of
this.
them. And someone brought up in a thread I was reading on Reddit that at some point Din's character will probably be best be served, falling in combat. And that's, a Mandalorian's kind of thing. And
I'm not ready.
The story would probably be served best by that happening and Grogu kind of making his own way and then jumping from there all the way to Rey's new trilogy.
That's right, because
that's the rumor going around right now.
Because
that's the rumor.
He'll be old enough at that point to to be actually interact with Rey's
put in work
as a character as opposed to a squirming baby.
And like honestly, oh my god, I can't even fathom that. Like my eyes is getting watery.
Yeah, like that, but that's my question. Can you fathom that moment?
I want it so bad, but and like you said, like, oh my god, I'm getting emotional.
He
but
really is
to have
Here's a Kleenex.
Mando like die in combat, which I've envisioned that in my head. So when it happens, it doesn't hurt as much. But because he dies, how much would it mean to just see Grogu like don his armor? Like
It would be
that aspect of just physically seeing that. No, I'm not ready.
As far as
I'm ready, but I'm not.
as far as storytelling aspects go, it would be the poetic way to do it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, not every story needs the happy ending.
Well, that's where Star Wars differs from maybe like the DC comics or Marvel comics or anything. By giving us this timeline, they've established like, you know, characters are going to die.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's on the battlefield or
Rogue
what.
One.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Holy Jesus.
And we knew that going into it.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Oh, you did?
No.
That whole film was just one step below a snuff piece.
Has it not been previously established and illustrated enough that I don't know a lot of what's going to happen?
That's almost that makes it almost more interesting to watch that movie, thinking that you're going to get the happy ending, because we all knew it was going to happen and it was still
Got
devastating.
nuked. Spoiler alert.
You're not allowed to watch any of these new Star Wars movies without me present, because I need to live through. I need to live through you. I need that lens of like I have absolutely no idea what's going on. Holy shit, the emotional impact.
But yeah, the Mandalorian not being just about Din Djarin, I think I noticed that especially this season. They're really exploring that.
Bo-Katan?
Yeah, well, I think beyond Bo-Katan, they're exploring just this New Republic era more, which maybe it's because they are leading to this movie, or they just want to explore the eras more, which is awesome for me because I love world building and I love seeing all those little things, and so it makes sense to me to move on from just him, but. I mean, I hope they bring it back a little bit, but I do see, like, especially in the movie, if they killed him off, that would make that movie like.
But it would make sense. It would make sense because of just who he is and him. You know, this is the way, and like what he represents. I feel like his sacrifice is that thing that would probably bring all of them together, because in the last episode, like he had like how he explained, you know, everything to the rest of the Mandalorians, like when he gave her the dark saber, Bo-Katan, like, you know, with his speech, like Mando is like that character who I feel that like he'll do anything to get these guys back together.
He is very, because the whole Mandalorian thing is a religion. He is probably the most religious Mandalorian alive.
He's devout.
Yeah,
I think he also just understands what needs to be done.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think he recognized that Bo-Katan would be a better leader than he could.
And even if that's him having to sacrifice, you know, himself for her, you know, for Grogu or whoever, like I feel like he's that character that would do that.
Yeah.
I think he has that overall, like, Mandalorian saved me. I'd already be dead if it wasn't for them. Mm-hmm. So, you know, whatever sacrifice I have to make to them is acceptable because
I owe them.
He knows it's not about. He already knows it's not about him.
Oh yeah, like it's above him. Like it's bigger than him. Like and we see like he understands that.
It would be interesting because so far, for the most part, I don't want to say selfish because I don't want to apply that kind of negative connotation to him. But his story has not really involved a larger story. And that will be interesting if he is involved in this battle with Thrawn, if like the New Order or anything comes up, to see him sacrifice himself for that, maybe that bigger galaxy-wide picture, part of maybe this Skywalker saga or something like that. Because we haven't really seen it. He's off doing his little side quests and taking Grogu to Luke and then taking Luke elsewhere.
I love that everything he has to get done. Every mission he has to do, like it's never easy. Like, oh, you want to do this? But first.
You didn't like the Law and Order-esque procedural with Bo-Katan? Every time I say her name, I want to go, Bo-Katan, 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 Kreese.
Oh.
It's very... Yeah, but his whole storyline is a very Japanese RPG. Like, oh, you want this? Well, you better go find me these 3 things first.
Yeah, I'm almost jealous. I kind of wish my life worked that way.
Oh, could you imagine if you just wanted to go get a donut, but they're like, but first.
If the reward was donuts,
Well, that's kind of like
Slaying
it's
dragon.
kind of what it's like being married. Oh, you want that? Well, you're gonna have to buy me some food and buy me some coffee.
oh geez,
Scratch my head.
Just touch it.
Touch it. Look at it. Okay, now look away. Now look again. Think about it. Don't think about it.
So we've mentioned the one movie, and we touched slightly on the big announcement. One of the big announcements that Rey was coming back or Daisy Ridley was coming back to reprise her role as Rey Skywalker. I have problems with that, but it's taking place 15 years, I think they said, after the Rise of Skywalker, under the New Jedi Order name for the era.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited. I like the Rey character. I think the movies, plenty of opinions on the movies, but I like the Rey character, and I hope that this is a good chance to redeem. And I am curious if they are going to tie her story back to any of the stuff that they've introduced since.
What do you mean by redeem? She doesn't need to redeem anything. No, I'm kidding. But speaking of the Skywalker name, do you guys know who she was originally supposed to be the daughter of before they ended up changing everything?
Was it going to be a Kenobi or?
Yeah, she was supposed to be the daughter of Obi-Wan.
Well, that's what I thought.
She was,
When I was trying to guess who the hell she was going to be,
see,
I did not expect
That
Palpatine.
seemed more like a rumor that the internet tried to will into existence. I haven't read
See,
anything that was
but
an actual
rumor?
conversation. Confirmation of that.
I thought I read a article that she said that she came out and said that there's something here that says
She came out as a Palpatine.
Daisy Ridley reveals Rey was originally going to be Obi-Wan's daughter, but a lot of the threads and the comments, the internet, but a lot of people said because we figured it out, they said no. No. I'm just saying that's just what the people think. They're like, they just didn't want us to be right, so they ended up changing it. But that's really not what happened. But I'm just saying. But
yeah.
Oh, the arrogance.
More and more, I find myself agreeing with what Rian Johnson was trying to do in The Last Jedi. The movie had its faults, absolutely. But his idea that Rey was a nobody, I kind of wish they stuck with it. I think the whole message...
That angle, yeah, like I think a lot of people wanted that more so than her being tied to anybody. But I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, because I mean, this whole idea of the Force is constantly trying to find balance. As one side rises, the other side rises to meet it.
Yeah,
it's weird to me that the Force just chooses like a couple families to do it in. Like you have the whole galaxy, and it's like, the light side's rising. The Skywalkers are getting stronger. I don't know, send up a Palpatine, and it's like they've got a whole lot of people, and I think it would have been cool if she ended up being a nobody.
Oh no, it would have been cool. Like, but it was. I feel like they wanted a closure for her character because she's been on that planet for so long, and she's been trying to find out like who left her there and all that stuff. And I feel like if they would have left it as nobody, I mean, I would have been fine with it. But I feel like for like a lot of the audience members and just her herself, I just feel like they felt like they had to, rather than just leaving her, just like a no name. But also with her movie being announced, a lot of people want Kylo Ren to come back, like that whole like.
It can happen because, well, somehow Palpatine returned.
Right.
They were already cloning him.
They're dubbing this thing this Raylo.
Oh yeah.
Like they're literally demanding
Ray
that
Swallow.
Kylo comes back, and I'm like, oh my god, here we go. The movie was just announced, and there's already fans like, well, if you're bringing her back, you better bring back.
Yeah. I am curious what they're going to do with it as far as villains and overall story. I know it's her rebuilding the Jedi Order. But yeah,
I do like that concept though of her rebuilding it,
especially after the revelations that she had with Luke about just how the faults in the Order and everything like that. It'll be interesting for her as pretty much the last Jedi at this point to start anew and who knows where they're going to go with this. 5 years from now, we might be talking about like, 200 years from this point, there's all this other story. And then Sith have come back or whatever. And it's another Palpatine.
I mean, you're coming to the new Jedi Order series where they blew up the Republic Capital in that the movie. So like there's gonna be like a huge power vacuum. There's gonna be, who's controlling this, who's fighting this, who's building up armies again to, redress old grudges. And then there's Rey trying to start the new Jedi. So there's massive potential in this timeline. It's just, are they going to pick it up and actually do it justice, or are they going to kind of fumble it the way they kind of fumbled the sequels?
Well, I feel like they have to pick it up and go hard because of the backlash that they had in the new trilogy. Like they have to from here on out. Like I feel like they have to make it happen, especially with all the shows going on right now. Like I feel like all the shows are pretty much hitting like a home run, but it's the movies that I feel like they're more concerned about.
Well, and it's like I have said before that it's easy to love the shows, although I wasn't really hot about the Book of Boba Fett.
I mean, it had its moments, but yeah.
But it's easy to love a series because they can flesh out all the more nuanced details about things, and then to have to squeeze in such a big story, like the Skywalker saga or the Palpatine saga, into
Everything's a Palpatine saga.
it's so much more pressure. There's no breathing room, because again, movie nerd, typically in movies, every shot, every angle, every scene, everything needs to inform the story. You can't have throwaway stuff. You can't have a throwaway Mandalorian procedural episode. It all has to serve the bigger storyline.
Oh yeah, it has to serve.
So there's a shit ton of pressure for those movies.
But I feel now like they have the people, as in the right people, behind it to move this universe forward. I felt like when Disney got the rights to Star Wars, like they just signed the paper and movies immediately came out. And I feel like they didn't take the time to figure out, okay, like this is really what we need to do, or they need to comb through, everything. Like, what do we like, that's already in existence, or that's what's canon. Like they just signed the contract, did another trilogy, which I do believe that they said after that last trilogy, they're like, oh, we're not going to do trilogies anymore. We're going to do like that.
That's what I thought.
That Marvel cinematic recipe where everything was going to lead up to, which I knew they were lying. But anyways, but it's just one of that thing. Like I just felt like they didn't take the time to literally sit there, get, writers and people, who actually, have a passion for Star Wars, and all this stuff, and then just move forward from there. But I hope that after this last trilogy that they kind of, it seems like they're taking a step back, and you know what, we really do need to take our time with this and actually flesh these things out, because there are people out there that care about this particular universe.
We should hope so.
Yeah.
Two quick points. When Disney sold, or not Disney, when Lucas sold the rights to Disney and he had scripts for the next 3 movies ready to go, do you think Disney was foolish to sideline those in favor of its own stories?
It's hard to say, because I think
it's hard to judge.
At that time, people still had animosity towards those prequel movies. And
Big time.
And it was one of those things where it's like, I like Star Wars, but those prequels, like, Jar Jar Binks. And so it's like, we're going to bring Lucas. It's like, is he going to have another Jar Jar? Like, there was certainly some creative choices that Lucas made that I think will always just kind of sting. And but I mean, I'm curious. I'm curious what he had planned.
I still want to know if that Darth Jar Jar thing is like real or not.
Just gonna bring that up.
Someone
Like
needs
that
to do
thing,
it.
like, because if you watch the trilogy, there's times where Jar Jar is in the background, and if you're like an animator, what they explained is you're not going to waste time on animation, like animating him, like doing these little things to like hint that he's, you know, possibly this type of person.
So there's intention.
Yeah, like I feel like because how we have Yoda, when you're introduced to Yoda, like he's like that goofy, you know, mentor, you know, Jedi master, and he's kind of kooky, but you know he can throw down. So with that said, like the Sith were always, you know, devious and, you know.
You talking shit about George, he's coming for you.
Is that
Like
how
that house right there.
We should do a good George. Oh, well, it's those guys, that house over there. Let's get them.
But it was just things that were said that like the way Jar Jar moved and how he jumped and like flipped and all that kind of stuff that made it seem like he had a strong connection to the Force. But he was just putting the ruse on people to say that he was this goofy character.
Because aren't there people that aren't there characters or just people in the Star Wars world that are somewhat Force sensitive, but not necessarily, you know, they don't have a high M count. You know, the midichlorians in your bloodstream, it's not super high like Grogu or Yoda or any of the Skywalkers, Palpatine. But some people have like some Force sensitivities.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was laughing because, you know, you take someone like Rey, who a lot of people aren't too happy with. They don't like her. She's
We
American.
talk. Mark Hamill loves her.
Yeah.
I'm such a big fan.
I mean, I don't know if they've ever
come for me,
established.
Joker.
I don't know if they've ever established how long a Gungan lives. Well, what if Darth Jar Jar ends up being the villain in Rey's new movie?
Oh my god!
Like everyone's already unhappy enough. It's like, oh, they're bringing Rey back, and then like she finally faces her villain, and it's like, Misa gonna kill you.
I think Ahmed Best would
absolutely lose my shit.
That may be the first time I throw my popcorn at a theater.
I hope he rides out on a bike like Jigsaw. Misa gonna play a game with you.
He actually lights his lightsaber with his tongue.
Ahmed Best would kick some ass because him like coming back into the world of Star Wars as a Jedi. I forget his name because he had as a big outlash for him playing Jar Jar Binks. So I think he would kick some ass.
Yeah. Well, him and young Anakin, like, oh my god,
man,
he got punished.
Right. Yeah,
Poor
punished.
young Anakin. So going, abrupt and but going to the complete other side of the Star Wars canon timeline, the third movie that was announced at Star Wars Celebration is the Dawn of the Jedi, which is that's the era. And I don't know. Did they say that was the name of the movie as well?
I think they just announced the era and the movie is going to take place in that era. I'm not sure if
it's
that's
about the first Jedi, the
Right.
Prime Jedi, or whatever, or like the discovery of the Force. I think is all of this. This is an era that's, you know, way before the Old Republic, which anyone that played the games or read the books knows about. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say other than it's like it sounds really interesting, and I'm curious again if it's going to link somehow directly to what we see. I'm curious what's going to come out first. Like, I almost want to see the Dawn of the Jedi come out before maybe some of the others, and maybe they can link to that story. But there's not.
Do you know, by any chance, Rudy, is there anything in the books that ever explain like the creation of the Force, like where it came from and all that stuff?
I think they went way back in the comics, which I'm not too familiar with. I read some of them, but none of the books dealt with like the first Jedi or like, you know, the first Sith or even just the first Force sensitives. So
I will throw this to Doug. I hope it's kind of like the Green Lantern, like the first Green Lantern to ever. Well, he didn't really find it, but he kind of manipulated it in a way where it worked different from all the rest of the lanterns, and then like it was just this new thing.
You're talking about Alan Scott.
Yeah, like if I'm
I kind of
right or wrong.
I like that idea of that. I mean, it would make sense because there's not going to be a Jedi Order. It's going to be someone that maybe finds this thing, and you know, I'm curious if he's going to even have a lightsaber, or maybe the Force is somehow going to guide him to the kyber crystals and making this, and it could end up being something completely different to what we get. I don't know, not to nerdsplain, I guess at this point.
No,
Alan
please
Scott, the
look
original,
me dead in the eyes and nerdsplain it.
real quick, because I know we're talking about Star Wars mostly. The original Green Lantern was Alan Scott, which took place like, you know, back in the 40s, one of the original superheroes. his ring, they later retcon to be like he found a piece of this meteorite, and his ring was more magic based. He wasn't part of the Green Lantern Corps because there was no Green Lantern Corps at that point. And then, later on in the 60s, they created the Green Lantern Corps, and those rings were more science based or whatever, but he was still kind of part of it through like a magic thing. So his ring worked different, but it was the same but different. And so I think that actually would be a really good analogy, I think, because we can't expect the very first Jedi or Force user to be in that same order because there is no order.
Yeah.
As far as I know about the Force, nothing. There's three like spirits, right? There's the father, the brother, and the sister.
What?
Oh, that's a construct of what the Clone Wars, and that's some wild shit that I'm still puzzling over to this day.
Didn't they explore it in Rebels? Like, didn't Ahsoka technically die, and then the sister's spirit of the sister went into her?
I think they saved Ahsoka through time travel.
Well, then there's that too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's the cartoons. Certainly, Rebels went into like some crazy Force stuff with like the animals, the Forces. We got a little hint of the
Space whales.
The space whales, which I think are Force sensitive, right, or something. Well, they hyperspace.
That's it.
Yeah, they hyper jumped with Thrawn and everything like that. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that movie will be interesting. Like I said, there's not much to say about it because there's not much to know about it. But those were the three movies, 3 live action movies that they announced. Beyond that, they also announced a couple new shows that they've mentioned before, but we've gotten a little bit more information about it. The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew are the 2 live action shows. I'm really excited for both of these for different reasons.
Oh yeah, definitely. The
Acolyte is taking place in the High Republic era. So this is, a few hundred years before Anakin shows up. This is a point in time. This was one of Disney's new pushes, was this High Republic era. There's a lot of books, a lot of comic books. There's a video game coming out. I don't know when, it's been delayed. And this is an era when the Republic is strong. They're not at war with the Sith. It's a strong era. The Outer Rim is kind of like the Wild West though still. And the books have introduced like there is like a main villain coming in or whatever.
Palpatine.
So the Acolyte, I think, is taking place a little bit towards the end of that High Republic era. And what's interesting about it is going to be from a Sith perspective. And I love this pitch. We've talked about this pitch. The pitch was it's Frozen meets Kill Bill.
I'm with that.
Yeah.
Well, the teaser trailer that they did release in Celebration has Carrie-Anne Moss, her character, like already Jedi'd out, and she's doing her Matrix Kung Fu with another character.
Awesome.
So that's already, I'm like, okay, I'm in. Let's go.
It sounds, I'm excited for it. It sounds cool that, and some of the people that are in it, I'm terrible with names, but Daphne Keane, who played X-23 in Logan, I think she's supposed to be the Sith character, I think. Amanda Sternberg from Bodies, and I think she was Rue in the Hunger Games.
Never seen him.
She's in it. I think she's supposed to be the Jedi character, and a dude from Squid Game is in it.
Oh yes, I don't remember his name, but I love him. He was like the main character in Squid Games.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this will be the first live action show. Actually, the first show in this time period. I think. Oh, the guy that played Chewbacca is going to be back as a different Wookiee, a Wookiee Jedi, which will be fun to see.
Oh,
and I think that's going to be the exciting point. We were having a conversation before the show about how Jedi can use they're different with the Force. Some are more lightsaber users, some are more Force users. I hope they explore that. I hope we get to see more and more of that. What's wrong?
I'm sorry, the microphone picked up his stomach.
Oh. Did you hear Rudy's like, hold on. You were talking the whole time and it was like,
I was like, holy shit, these mics are amazing.
Thanks,
me and Isaac's eyes popped up and we made eye contact and then we look over at Rudy. He's like,
I felt it.
So
I felt it happening, and then I saw him react. I'm like, holy shit, they can hear it.
That was Rudy's hunger for Star Wars, y'all. He is hungry.
You are an idiot. And I hate you so.
So the other live action series that they announced beyond the Acolyte was Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, what is a Skeleton Crew?
From what they've said, it's about it's taking place during the New Republic era. So this is the same era as Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and it's like children on a spaceship that is lost or broken down. And that's what has me interested about it, because it doesn't, that description, like, it doesn't sound like it has any major story impact at all. It sounds like someone just like, I want to write this interesting story in Star Wars. Jude Law is in it, which I like Jude Law. And then, yeah, a bunch of kids, but they are saying, like, they're adamant, like, it's not a kid's show, despite the children's cast.
Do you think it'll be any kind of like Forrest Gump thing where it's like the certain storylines happening in the eyes of the Skeleton Crew, or are they more do you think they're going to be active and stuff?
What do you mean?
So like in Forrest Gump, he doesn't really have like a heavy hand to play, but he's just like, you're experiencing history through them.
Oh, maybe. I was kind of curious because, I mean, they totally tricked us with Mandalorian by introducing Grogu at the end, right? I'm kind of curious if it's going to be the same thing where the setup is, here's just a bunch of kids lost on a starship, but they're going to quickly introduce, like, one of them is, you know, despite the jokes earlier about Palpatine, like the Palpatine clone, right? Like Rey's dad, right? Because he left. You know, I mean, I don't know what age he left, but you know, I don't know. I just it's interesting to me because it seems like such a random show, and I'm curious what they're going to do with it.
I do hope they have a droid on there that comes out and says "Danger, Will Robinson."
Jesus.
Yeah, it really. I mean, as soon as I read that, I was like, "Oh, it's Lost in Space." Which
Lost
I
in
like
Space
the new
and,
Lost in Space series.
But that was a really good show. It's really sad that it ended.
Yeah, it deserved more.
But yeah.
Oh, it did.
I'm pretty sure, I mentioned earlier that Skeleton Crew was one of the ones I didn't get a lot of information on. I'm pretty sure I watched something, though, that someone described it as like a Goonies kind of Amblin-esque type of feel to it.
I'm
like,
all in then.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
like
Goonies,
that's-
yes.
Like someone described it as taking like the view from the suburbs of Star Wars. You know, like
Perfect.
these people, like, you know, from the outside, and then dropping them into an adventure.
Well, that's one of that's one of the things, like with Andor, that I really liked, and some people were complaining that it kind of dragged a bit, but I don't think that it did at all, because it was one of those shows where it's in an established world, and it's like, yeah, other than the main storylines with your main antagonist and protagonist, here's the rest of the little people and how they live amongst this already built world without force sensitive abilities and things like that. And I kind of liked it because it made that world feel even more lived in.
Oh, absolutely. Andor did a good job of showing both the people in the Empire, working for the Empire, their everyday world. I mean, they showed someone eating cereal. Like, there's cereal in the Star Wars universe. They also established
With
that
blue milk.
people do in fact fuck, because there was a brothel like first episode.
And they do in fact say shit other than poodoo.
Yeah, people say shit and they bang. That's what Andor gave us, and a lot more. Andor gave us amazing stuff, but it gave us a world. Which, I mean, not to go on too much of a tangent because we were running short on time here, but one of my things for a movie or a world is you got to show me something that people are fighting for. And in Star Wars, I've never doubted from the very first movie. Like, we see Luke wanting to go play with his friends. We see a bar where people are drinking and listening to music. Like, this is a world where people are living, they're having fun, they're spending their money, they're doing their things, they're farming, So I instantly understand why the rebels would be like, no, the Empire is taking this from me. Like, I get it. And Andor did even more of showing both why someone would fight for the Empire and why someone would rebel.
Yeah.
Because we have a world that's worth living in.
Yeah, there's even some people, some characters in, I don't remember if it was either Andor or The Mandalorian, where, because, you know, when you watch all these films and stuff, you go, well, the Empire is the bad thing. Of course you're going to hate the Empire. Of course everyone's going to rebel. Some people don't. Some people are like, well, I got 3 square meals and someone to watch over me and there's security, I'm good. I'm all for the Empire, even though because they're only aware of as much as the Empire would let the regular civilians be aware of. They don't know all the dark stuff, the whole Palpatine crap.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They just know what's exactly in front of them.
And that's probably why beyond the it's cheaper to film outer rim shows because you're dealing with smaller environments and Tatooine and stuff like that. But I think that's probably why a lot of those shows do take place in that outer rim, is because you are going to have that that imperial evilness. Like I'm assuming out in the outer rim, they're not hiding it as much as maybe they would on Coruscant or the inner rim stuff.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
You gotta play it safe so you don't piss off certain rich, powerful people or senators and stuff like that. A bunch of animation stuff was announced at Star Wars Celebration as well. We have sorry, can you move your head back a little bit? Sorry, it's all right.
I think move your forehead.
I'm on brand.
Okay. Tales of Jedi Season 2 was announced. Sadly, and shame me for this, I haven't watched the first one yet.
Get him.
Thank you.
Shame.
I don't know why I haven't watched it. I need to sit down. Star Wars Visions, which is really cool. They
That's
gather.
the one I'm excited for more.
Yeah.
So Visions to me is it's a thing that I always wanted, like what's happening right now in the Star Wars universe with all the movies and the shows. Like it's these creative ideas of what could possibly exist within that universe. Like it's almost like a Black Mirror or like
What If?
Love, Sex, and Robots, and Marvel's like What If. It's all these tales of different animated style, of stories that people have that just exist in this world, but it's their vision of like what Star Wars could look like in so many different rainbows of animated styles.
And much like Love, Death, and Robots, the animation styles are different.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, it's different studios from around the world, which is great to. I
I
think,
love that they're doing that. Like that's probably one of my favorite ones in the whole animated
Because
announcement.
I think that's super fun to essentially have this little place like Visions where you can stretch your legs and kind of take a breather from the main storyline where stuff isn't canon, but you get to have fun and on the whole what if aspect of it, kind of see like, oh, what would it be like if things were to be played out in a different way and a different
you get to play in the
perspective.
sandbox.
Yeah.
of that
there you go.
universe. Yeah.
Without affecting the main storyline at all.
Yeah, and with I feel like a lot of the world is appreciating animation more and more these days. So it's cool to get a collection of these different studios to see that there are different styles, there are different ways to present animation.
Do you guys remember one of my favorite like animated projects? I'll use that word, but the Animatrix, like.
Yeah.
I love all that. Like, like that's another world within the Matrix that, I feel that can do that because it's so big and so vast. Like you don't necessarily have to follow these specific people because there's so much out there that you can dive into. But
The Matrix was one of those
love the
things where like
Animatrix.
they built that world and I wanted them to explore it even more aside from like your main storyline.
Oh yeah,
shows
definitely.
There's a lot
Like,
they could have done with that.
so much. But anyways, that's why I like Star Wars Vision more than anything.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. For the kids, which I'm actually glad that they're doing this because Star Wars has become such a integral part, I think, of everyone's life. Even if you actively are trying to avoid Star Wars, it's there. You're going to hear about Star Wars. So they showed a trailer for Young Jedi Adventures, absolutely for kids. I mean, like I'm saying, it's not even like the kids show that like, oh, I'm going to watch it anyway. I mean, it's absolutely for kids, but it's cool because I'm sure there's a lot of parents that have young ones who, maybe they're
Younglings?
older, little younglings that their older siblings are watching Star
Keep
Wars and
Anakin
these other
away.
shows, and maybe they're not comfortable showing their young ones some of the more violent stuff. I mean. The second my kids act up,
Order 66?
Yeah, no. The second my kids act up, I'm showing them the Anakin chopping down children's head. I'm just warning them.
And we just saw
I'll come and get you.
Yeah,
In the animated series, we just saw Darth Maul decapitate. What's his name again? We just saw the
Pre
little clip.
Vizsla.
Yeah.
So I mean, the shows are all like,
What?
I don't want to say violent because I'm not. Like, it is what it is. Yeah, watch the Clone Wars. Actually, I haven't watched all of them, but I've watched a good portion of them. But anyway, yeah, I think it's kind of cool that younglings are going to get a head start into the.
I hope it's on that level of like Magic School Bus Adventure with like a Miss Frizzle.
It's
that trailer.
Yoda's
going to
be Miss Frizzle, yeah.
That like Coco Melon in space kind of vibe.
Yeah, and that's taking place in the High Republic era, so there's another like jump into that generally unexplored era unless you read the books and comics. And then finally, as far as animation goes, the Bad Batch, which we are on season 2 right now. Season 3 was announced. It's going to be the final season next year. Yeah, I'm bummed out. I ended up. I think
Omega.
it's just,
Damn, I was about to say that. Omega.
Omega.
yeah, I'm enjoying it. I think it's such a fun idea of the Bad Batch, the reject clones.
The concept of that was so fantastic. I knew nothing about any of those characters, and just jumping right into it and stuff. You actually were the one who like, are you watching Bad Batch season 2? I didn't know it had already come out, and I was so pissed at myself. Fucking binged the shit out of that thing. I'm so sad that's gonna come to. I mean, all the good things coming to an end, but that show, it's so fun. Again, to have like characters that you get to fall in love with that are in that world that may or may not have like a big effect on like the main storyline.
But it kind of does. I mean, they touch on what happened to the makers of the clones.
Yeah.
I forget their name.
Kaminoans.
They touched on what happened to them and touched on how the Empire switched from clones to the Stormtroopers. Like a lot of really big, like elements that if you're a casual Star Wars person, you don't care about, but as a nerd, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool to see. And
It filled in the gaps.
They touched on how Jabba the Hutt got his Rancor, so that's kind of fun.
Hey,
I do have one last point before we wrap up. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Rogue Squadron.
Oh yes,
that was announced way back when. I think it was the last celebration with
Patty Jenkins.
Patty Jenkins set to direct. Those started out as a series of books that kind of expanded on, the New Republic and their, elite fighting force, X-Wing pilots. That was rumored to have been shelved. They did an interview with Kathleen Kennedy and they brought that up, and it hasn't been shelved. It's still a conversation, but they're still kind of debating whether they want to bring it to movies or they want to make it a long form Disney Plus series.
that's awesome.
And that was just, for me, like that's peak Star Wars for me.
Yeah,
Is the X-Wing pilots. That's it for me. Like when they made that announcement with Patty Jenkins, I fucking wept.
Yeah,
like
that's
a
what I was gonna go
bitch.
to.
I was so excited. And when they said they were going to shelve it or it was backburnered, I wanted to kill everyone.
Order 66.
Yeah.
Like Order
Damn,
66 the world.
But I'm watching this interview with her, and she just casually tosses out, "Oh no, it's we're still talking about it, and possibly a Disney Plus series." Like I went from horizontal to vertical so quickly, like all the blood left my head. It was amazing, and I just wanted to bring that up in case anyone else out there.
No, that is good.
yeah.
I imagine like the Ike Turner meme. Bitch, what?
That's what's wild to me is all the stuff we mentioned today. Plus, there was the video game Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Beyond what was actually announced, there's all this conversation stuff. Rogue Squadron, Lando. They're still talking about a Lando series with Donald Glover, and I think they're still talking about Rian Johnson doing another trilogy, which is crazy because a lot of people didn't like The Last Jedi. I still think he deserves a shot to do something with it.
Redemption.
And then Taika Waititi is still in talks to do a movie
he's still
or a
working on his
trilogy or
series.
something like that. So from what I read, like he wants to write it all himself or whatever like that.
Yeah,
So it might be a while. But I mean, that's what's wild. Like we are going to get so much Star Wars. It's going to be awesome.
I'm here for it.
Isn't it a great
absolutely.
time to be a nerd of any type, and specifically Star
Absolutely.
Wars?
Yeah.
And all they have to do is survive.
Harder than
Me and Rudy have this thing, like anytime a movie is announced, like when we go to Comic-Con and it's like, like right now, like it's 2023, but they're like, oh, there's a movie coming out in 2025. We always look at each other. Survive. We have to survive.
It's getting just a tiny bit more desperate every time we say it as the years go by.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like I'm trying.
In my car,
White-knuckling the pandemic.
or
God, yeah.
in my truck, I have this keychain. It's my Mario 1-Up. I never leave the house without it, just in case I need my extra life.
Just to get to the next Star Wars movie.
Any nerd movie, like, or any, pop culture movie in general, like if it grabs me, I'm like, so you're telling me I have to survive now till 2025? But with all these announcements with, Marvel movies and Star Wars movies, I'm like, I have to become immortal. I will find the way.
And one thing I found interesting when The Last of Us came out, like people were breaking down what all was missed. Because, the outbreak happened at a certain point. It's like Return of the King never came out. So that world, everyone watched the first 2 Lord of the Rings movies. And then didn't get the third.
I got you.
Like that's what that got me. It's like, oh man, are we gonna get like 2 movies in a Star Wars trilogy, and then the nukes are gonna drop, and like I'll be there with my third arm, like going across the wastelands of Bakersfield, thinking like, God damn, I wonder what happened in that movie.
There's a clicker.
Yeah,
It's a good movie.
Do you remember in the I Am Legends movie, you had that billboard of the Batman v Superman?
Oh, yeah.
Like that thing happened, and I was like, I want that. And then we actually got it, but that's a different topic for another day.
yeah. Going back to what we were talking about being at a convention, though, I was at Comic-Con. I wasn't in the Hall H when they announced it, but I remember like reading it, and people like you could hear the murmur in the crowd was because everyone was expecting the Man of Steel 2 being announced.
Yeah.
And I think all he did is like, Zack Snyder was talking. He's like, oh, I got something to show you. And all it was just the symbols.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it was the Superman symbol slowly appearing, which everyone
Yeah, I
expected.
remember that.
And then the Batman symbol appearing behind it. Like
I was done.
Didn't they also?
I would have loved to have been in that crowd.
Wasn't it not just a symbol, but it was also
We were
Batman
in that crowd,
in a
weren't we?
suit, and then
I do
Superman
remember.
up with his red eyes.
Oh, yeah. I think they did. They added that clip, the rain scene with the bat symbol or whatever like that. But just seeing that symbol, like, because it was such a surprise. Like, no one was talking about it. There was no rumors about it.
It was a symbol of hope.
Because I remember they came out and they literally read a quote from the Dark Knight book. Like,
Yes.
Well,
I want to say
it was that quote and then the symbol,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
I want to say I was there.
We were at Comic Con. I don't think we were in that crowd though.
You guys might have been because
I
I
could
was
be
off
wrong.
by myself.
Like now, my timeline is so blurred. Like when you watch, you get
Too much drugs and alcohol.
like when you get your memories, from Facebook or IG. You're like, oh, that was 8 years ago. In my mind, it was like 3 years ago.
Now I see those and I go, ugh, my hairline was better.
But yeah, so that was, this was a big week. Like I said, we didn't even cover a lot of the other announcements. This was all Star Wars. But
I ain't complaining.
yeah,
Wrap it.
this is a good week. Yeah.
And that, I'm afraid, is just as good as place as any to wrap all this stuff up. You guys, thank you for listening to the Hype Attack podcast. Find us at the Hype Attack on Instagram, where we cover some of the things that we covered today and more, because Star Wars is a big, vast universe, and this is just a few things in said vast universe. So check those things out. We are the Hype Attack podcast. Doug?
Keep the conversation going, everybody. Keep the conversation with us. Keep the conversation going with your friends, your family. Nerd out, everybody.
Yeah,
Hype out.
And if there's anything that we might have missed today, hit us up in the DMs. DM us. And if there's stuff that you would maybe want us to talk about in the near future, DM us.
Yeah, let us know what you guys are hyped about.
Or slide in some comments. You don't need to directly message us and yell at us. Just put it in the comments. We'll read them. I will sit there and go through all of them.
But please be nice.
Hey guys, thank you again for listening to another episode of the Hype Attack podcast. Till next week, until next time, same hype time, same hype channel.
Hype
Bye.
attack.
Oh.